name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Ghost. Amen. You may be seated. Well, we have in our second reading this morning, the closing encouragement to Timothy, one of the early leaders of the first century church. Maybe you caught the common vein, the common thread that went throughout our readings this morning. But this letter to Timothy contains some of the clearest directives in regards to church leadership and authority in the entire New Testament. How do we preserve the true faith that's been passed down? Well, one of the key ways for Paul was to appoint good leaders to teach and care for the flock. Ward off any wolves that would come and lead the sheep astray. Just a little bit of more context for this book, and then we'll talk about some of the other readings as well. This first letter to Timothy stands as one of three of what is called the pastoral epistles. They're traditionally attributed to Paul. Of course, the most prevalent writer or influential missionary of the early church. But the authorship of these letters, at least since the mid-1800s, has sort of come under question, scrutiny, really. Why is that? Well, some of it is due to the differences in some of the contents, the themes, but really it's mostly the language. More than 306 words, roughly 100 or 1/3 of the entire content of these letters is not found in any other Pauline writing. And in fact, around 350 words appear in 1st and 2nd Timothy and Titus that occur nowhere else in the New Testament. So scholars have looked at this and said, well, maybe it was somebody else that actually wrote this, somebody later on. But despite the difference in languages, we see a consistency in the theology in these books that aligns perfectly with the other writings of Paul. These books are an invaluable source of wisdom and instruction, and were accepted by the church very early on into the New Testament canon. So Timothy had been charged with going to fix some problems at a church that Paul was overseeing. Some individuals had hijacked the congregation, were teaching the people doctrines that were contrary to the true faith. So Timothy had been instructed to go and confront these individuals head on, to right the ship, fix what was broken, and restore order to the congregation. The letter actually opens with a beautiful bit of poetic language, some opening words of encouragement to Timothy, and it's bookended with a similar ending. That's what we get this morning in 1 Timothy chapter 6. Paul is wrapping up his letter to Timothy in this passage. And at least part of his instructions to Timothy were to help reorient the people's mindset towards money. Look at the final words of the passage in 1 Timothy. It says, command those who are rich in this present age not to be haughty, nor to trust in uncertain riches, but in the living God, who gives us richly all things to enjoy. Let them do good, that they be rich in good works, ready to give, willing to share, storing up for themselves a good foundation for the time to come, that they may lay hold on eternal life. Riches. What does it mean to be rich? What if I told you right here, right now, that up until this point, I have never met a rich person? I've never met a rich person. Would you believe me if I told you that? Well, it's true. Sort of. That every conversation I've ever been in on or have been within earshot of, if someone has ever asked if they think that they are rich, despite whatever income they make or whatever financial situation they're in, I've never heard anybody say, yeah, I'm rich. You know what? I am rich. No, inevitably there's him on, well, if there's other people that I'm doing okay. That's usually the response. But usually there's very rarely an admission. Why is that? Well, inevitably it's because, well, I know people that make more money than me. You know somebody that makes 2 or 3 or 4 times your annual, income, then they're the rich ones, right? They're doing really well. I'm doing okay. It gets a little bit easier to admit that you're rich if you're a rapper or a celebrity or a CEO of like a really big company. If you're, well into the 7 figures every year, bringing that in, it's probably a little bit easier for you. But the truth is, even everybody in this room, if you compare what we make to the rest of the population of this earth, you'd probably be pretty surprised. If you and your spouse both make minimum wage, and you compare your annual income to the other 7.5 billion people on this earth, that, $30,000 a year, whatever it is, puts you in the top 1% of the wealthiest people on the planet. Imagine that you're richer than 7.4 billion other people on this earth. But it's hard for us to consider ourselves rich because all of us have struggles when it comes to our relationships with money. I have to tell you, I don't like preaching about money. I think it's a necessary evil for a pastor, I guess. In one of the churches I grew up in, roughly half, I kid you not, half of all the sermons that I heard from the pastor there had something to do with money. Wanting to, encourage people to give more to, the latest project or to, fund the church, to help, prop up some kind of new ministry, whatever it was. And I thought, man, is this really all it is? Is this really what church is all about? But the truth is, money does solve problems, right? Money does create opportunity. Money does allow for stability in the home. It puts food on the table. It allows us as a church to do the work of ministry. But the ultimate reliance on our riches can lead to our downfall. That's the common thread all throughout our readings this morning. Paul says, be sure and instruct your congregation. And this is obviously extremely important to Paul since he drives this point home at the very end of his letter. Again, look at that, the end of 1 Timothy 6. He says, command those who are rich in this present age not to be haughty, not to trust in uncertain riches, but in the living God. Riches are uncertain by their very nature. Instead, Paul says, you know what? Invest in others. Do good works. Be ready to give, ready to share. Those are the investments that will never falter. Those are the things that create lasting joy and eternal payoff. Don't be so tight-gripped with your money. Ultimately, Paul wants to make sure that Timothy and those he instructs knows who holds the ultimate power and authority. He says, he who is the blessed and only potentate, the King of kings and Lord of lords, who alone has immortality, dwelling in an unapproachable light, whom no man has seen or can see, to whom be honor and everlasting power. That word potentate, not really a word that we use much anymore. When I was a kid, I remember reading this out loud in Sunday school. I don't know, like 6 or 7. And I came upon this word, and I just said potato, because it looked like potato. So I said potato, and just kept going. I just assumed it was characteristics of God that I didn't know about. The word potentate, it really holds a lot. It denotes a ruler with absolute authority. Absolute authority. A monarch who holds all the power, all the control. There's nothing that's not under his grasp. He owns everything. A king who rules over everything you can see. This what Paul is saying. This is the identity of the Christ we confess. This is who he is. Paul says, if you understand this, if you understand just how far Christ's rule and authority extends, if you understand that the God you serve is the one who gives riches and the one who takes them away, who holds the keys to heaven and earth, this is the one who has blessed you with what you have. And what are you going to do with it? What are you going to do with it? If you have a solid understanding of the fleeting nature of earthly wealth and the fact that everything that has been given to you is in fact a gift from the Father, then you will have a healthy perspective on money. You'll probably be a lot more generous, knowing that it was given generously to you. This is our charge this morning. Don't trust what is fleeting. Don't trust what is fleeting. Trust in what is eternal. May that King of Kings continue to bless us, and may we in turn seek to bless others. Amen.